4 years ago, HubSpot acquired the Hustle media company, and we brought that together with the Hustle and built out what is now HubSpot Media Division. It's roughly like a little over 50 writers, editors, producers focused on managing more of a portfolio of media brands.
So the acquisition of the Hustle really kicked off this strategy. So how would you describe what the results have looked like over that time?
Every program has a reach and demand KPI every month. Some of our products are designed for brand awareness and reach. Some of our channels are designed for demand gen. That's what people miss, the offer match. We call it the AECOM framework.
Kyle, I'm very excited to talk today. I've been following your all's work at HubSpot. I know you have a personal newsletter as well. And for context for everybody, so you're the senior director of marketing at HubSpot. Mostly what you're focused on these days, I know you've had a variety of different roles during your time at HubSpot, but you're focused on the HubSpot Media Network, which
That's right.
Kind of my understanding, the umbrella underneath that is newsletters, podcasts, YouTube, essentially like the things that we talk about on this show a lot, which is like, how do we create attention with future buyers on the platforms that they're hanging out before they may ever be in market for a platform like HubSpot. But then when they're out of contract with a competitor 6 months from now, they've been following the Hustle. They've been following My First Million. And I know you've got a bunch of content pillars there that we can go into. So you're immediately, front of mind for that moment.
Yeah, that's exactly right. No, thanks for having me. HubSpot Media, I guess a little more detail for folks, is about 4 years ago, HubSpot acquired the Hustle media company. And at that point, we had kind of that traditional content marketing team.
Yep.
And we brought that together with the Hustle and built out what is now HubSpot Media Division. It's roughly like a little over 50 writers, editors, producers, audience development marketers focused on managing more of a portfolio of media brands. I think we've gone from this like single channel content strategy to more of a portfolio where, like you mentioned, YouTube, newsletter, podcasts, and like how do we actually build up media brands that attract audiences for us. So excited to dive into it.
Yeah. And the scale you all are doing it at, like, just from being in the content game myself for a long time, like I know it's no easy feat to try to get one or two content brands off the ground, let alone like the number you have. So could you just give like just a general overview? Maybe, I don't want you to feel like you have to go through every single one, but just,
Sure.
Big picture, like what does that world look like of your content brands on those different channels?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I can give you kind of a framework, whether it's like a small biz or a large company. And I've talked to some of my friends who work at small agencies, and it's a similar approach, which is audience first content strategy. So I think marketers love to talk about like channels and tactics, right? I run our blog, I run our email program, I run our digital ads program. But really, those programs are trying to reach the same person, right? And so if you take an audience first approach, you're saying, starting from scratch, if I was going to put together a content strategy to reach this audience, engage with this audience, and ultimately convert this audience, what would that look like? And so we go into like HubSpot's audience verticals. So if you look at our product portfolio, we have a great CRM, but we also have marketing software, right? That's used by directors of marketing, social media marketing managers, content marketers. We have sales software for sales reps, sales managers. We have customer success software for support reps and customer success teams. And so when we think about content strategy, we say, okay, who's the audience? Like, who are we trying to reach? And then from there, we have the conversation around what channels are going to reach this audience and influence this audience. And I think that's important because marketers engage with media very differently than salespeople, right? And like I think depending when you do your audience research, you'll start to learn more. What are their preferences? What channels
Mm.
do they hang out on during the week? What apps do they open on their phone every day? That's going to inform, oh, okay, I think we need to go the newsletter route for this audience. I think that's going to be kind of the anchor media product for us. Or this audience is on the go all the time. They're on calls all day. They just want to listen to something in their ear.
Yep.
So you may go the podcast route. So that's the way we approach it, is like audience first, understand where those folks are, and then make decisions around what media products or channels you're going to invest in.
I'm such a believer in that. That step, funny enough, is very often skipped, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like, which is like,
Oh, yeah.
instead of thinking about it from that perspective, or doing a little bit of audience research, even 5 to 10 calls with, like, people that fit that persona, that are current clients or customers, and asking them, where do you consume content? How do you consume it? What's missing? All of that kind of stuff. It's more so just skipping a lot of times to the step of, like, we need a newsletter, or we need a podcast,
Yep.
or, insert whatever channel or format. And probably there's still success to be had there,
Sure.
regardless. But to your point, it's about optimizing it. And what is, like, the central pillar? I'm assuming you all also probably repurpose some of these things across channels and stuff like that. But the main thing is, like, there can only be so many goals. Like, it's like, so what's the North Star for this content brand?
Yeah. Yeah. I think to unpack that, you're right, where it's like, this is an investment for the business, right? I think that's the way we look at it, is like, if we're going to invest in a media product, it's an asset, it's an investment for the business. So we got to do our research up front. Like, we got to be able to go to the head of marketing, the head of sales, the finance team, and be like, we want to invest in this newsletter or this podcast, and here's why. And that audience research gives you those data points. And that, like you mentioned, it's as simple as like setting up a customer call and be like, you listen to podcasts every week? And if they say no, maybe that's not the right channel for you. So once you do that, then I think it's a matter of like, okay, I know what channel I'm going to invest in. And there tends to be an anchor, right? Like a media product that you're going to invest a lot of time in. So let's say you decide it's going to be YouTube. You're like, okay, so I'm going to be great at YouTube. YouTube's got great discovery potential through the search and browse algorithms. Video seems to be a preference for a lot of audiences right now, so I can repurpose that. So you invest in a great YouTube channel, you're publishing long form once a week, and then you mentioned like the repackaging and repurposing. There's so much you can get out of a great YouTube video.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of folks that are doing more talk shows on YouTube that could be 30 to 45 minutes long. And that transcript is a ton of content for you to use as a marketer, right? So our teams will record an episode of My First Million, for example, take that transcript, and now we're developing short clips for social. We're remixing some of the content from that episode into more of like a utility asset, or like a takeaway, a guide, or a template that someone could use. Because
Yep.
when you're listening to the pod, you're not sitting there taking notes necessarily,
Yes.
right? Like, so you want to be able to give that audience something as like a takeaway. And that one episode then feeds multiple distribution channels for you, and it's one asset you've invested in. And I think teams can be really efficient that way.
I've noticed that you probably have been doing that for a while, but I've just noticed it as a My First Million listener.
Sure.
The CTAs to like get the checklist or get the guide or what have you, that like is the summary or steps that were basically described a little bit. And so it matches and it maps to what the episode was talking about. And then I'm assuming it's a nice driver to get people from YouTube or from the audio podcast onto the newsletter.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually, we call it the AECOM framework. So audience content offer match. And I think this is another piece that's missed. You and I talked about like audience research to inform. The other piece is like, I make a great piece of content, but then like, what work is it doing for the business? And one of the things that we obsess over is that offer match. And it's not just like, a throwaway piece of content that's like a summary of the episode. We're actually trying to create a utility, like something that is like, I can use it right now to go do a thing. And we actually have a monetization team that obsesses over the offer match. They like make premium content offers that map to the content. And we want to make sure it's like a value add for the audience. And that's what we use to like look at audience engagement, conversion rates, and obviously demand for the business. But I think that's such a step that's missed at the end of the day. Sometimes companies like throw a product promo in there that doesn't really make sense for the audience. It kind of interrupts them, or they slap an offer in there after the fact that again doesn't really align with like what the episode was about. So we spend a lot of time in pre-production on what's the offer, like what's the plan for this, like what else can we give the audience that's gonna help them have a takeaway.
Yeah. And what I hear with that, which I think is really smart, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the offer doesn't necessarily mean the offer as a sort of direct response immediately to HubSpot. It's an offer like sort of moving them. People can debate, are we still in a funnel environment, all of that stuff, whatever. But like basically kind of moving them from this piece of content into a more engaged relationship with them, more value, and just continue stacking is that kind of the right way like to think about it?
Yeah, definitely. Especially with like more of our editorial content. So like our explainer videos, our talk shows, we're not, we realize that buying software is has a long sales cycle and not everyone is in the market for it, right? I think a majority of the people who are watching a My First Million episode probably aren't ready to buy marketing software, but we want to just keep giving them value. Our founder always talks about offer value before you extract value. Like just keep giving value, and eventually, once someone is ready to buy, they're going to say, man, I learned a lot, or HubSpot taught me a lot. Maybe I should consider them on my short list. So that's our thinking, is just like continuing to offer value and be there as a resource for folks.
Yeah. And HubSpot, like this has been in the HubSpot DNA, honestly, for, 20 years. Like back in the SEO days, like your all's written content was doing that for a lot of people, like basically teaching marketers how to do marketing as they were coming up in their careers. And then as they got promotions and got into the buyer seat, they were like, whoa, I basically have been learning from HubSpot for 7 years. And now it's like the same concept, just applying it to 2025 media and like content consumption behavior, because we need to follow as content people and marketers, like where is attention at right now? We can't say, I don't use YouTube, so nobody uses YouTube. Like I kind of hear that stuff a good amount sometimes, like someone's personal preference versus like actually what is happening with consumer attention, including B2B. People have this thought that like, a 45-year-old VP of marketing or director or C-suite, like they're not watching YouTube, and that is not true.
No. Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, it's just one of our core principles, right? Whether that was the blog or like I started my career in the agency world and I'd read that blog every week to come up with ideas for my clients, and I think it's just this idea of going from like inbound content marketing that's like rooted in SEO. I think we've moved to this like direct media model, which is like we have the ability to create these media products, offer value, and build an audience, which is a shift in our approach and how we package things. But the foundation's still the same, right? We're offering value so that when you're ready to buy, we're on that short list. So I think the approach around like the change in channels and investments you nailed, which is just like audience preferences have changed quite dramatically over the last 3 to 5 years. I think like audience attention so fragmented, I could pull up my phone and listen to Spotify, watch a YouTube video, read an email all in the same day, right? And so we got to figure out where's our audience spending time, and then deliver value to them. I will say to your comment around like the VP decision maker, I hear that too, and they may not be sitting down at their desktop watching a YouTube video necessarily, but their teams might be. And a lot of times decision makers do things by committee, and they're asking their team, hey, what's your favorite tool? What should we put on the short list? Who should we consider for this? Or sometimes they delegate it, right? Hey, can you go do some research around software and come back to me with like who the short list should be and why? What are the pros and cons? So I think there's that piece of like just influencing that buyer committee. And it's so hard to get in front of that one decision maker at that one time. You just want to be top of mind for them and their team.
What has it looked like? So it sounds to me the acquisition of The Hustle 4 years ago, in maybe large part, really kicked off this sort of overall strategy. So how would you describe, just like, in whatever way you prefer, like what the results have looked like over that time, whether it be like, hey, these are the number of people we get in front of every month, or like just whatever version of all of that like looks like for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I can give you a little breakdown around like how we measure success. So, the Hustle acquisition was definitely a strategy that we had said, you know what, audience preferences are changing. More people are moving to YouTube. Substack is growing like crazy. More people are moving to TikTok and social. And so we knew we needed to build direct media products to reach audiences on those platforms. And so I think bringing that group together with our content team offered the talent from the editorial side with kind of the growth marketing of the HubSpot side. And that blend has really paid off for us. When it comes to our measurement, it kind of depends who you're talking to, right? If you're talking to the CMO or the CFO, that's a different conversation than you're talking to the supervising producer on a YouTube channel. But just to give you a sense of like how we structure it. So every program has a reach and demand KPI every month. So for a blog, for example, the reach may be organic traffic and demand would be content leads. For a YouTube channel, it'd be organic long form views and content leads. And those are kind of the KPIs that the product owners or program owners are looking at every month to say, am I growing reach? Am I growing demand? Now, some of our products are designed for brand awareness and reach. So their reach KPI and reach goals are a little higher than their demand goals. We're not expecting it to generate demand because of the content on that channel, where some of our channels are designed for demand gen, right? And it's like they carry a little more that lead number. And then I would say down like to the individual product level, we have these signals. So we talk about like signal and scale. So what I just talked to you about, scale, reach and demand. The signals are like, how's the media product performing? So a YouTube producer is going to tell you, my thumbnail click-through rate is going up on the channel. My average view duration is going up. My total watch time is going up. Because those are all signals that if the audience is engaging with our videos more, the algorithm's more likely to show our video through browse and suggested or search. So our teams, I think, depending on month to month what they're looking at, the writers, the producers, the marketers, they're in the weeds on those signals.
Right.
And then every month we're doing a recap of like, okay, did we grow our reach and our demand through this play?
I really like that delineation. Who owns the reach and the demand ultimately? Is that the same person? Or you kind of mentioned, it sounds to me like you do have both sides of that equation a little bit, and they work together.
Yeah. So teams, depending on the maturity of the program, teams can be smaller or larger. I think generally there's like three people in the room, right? So you have a marketer, an audience development marketer who's focused on looking at the data and insights, providing that to the editorial and monetization team and saying like, here's what's working, here's what's not. Here's some of my recommendations. And they're really focused on informing the work and then also distributing the content, right? As the marketers, their job to figure out how do we distribute it. Then you'd have like a content lead. So if it's a newsletter, there's a writer, there's a lead writer who's their partner, right? And then there's a third person in the room who's the monetization person who's focused on that offer match. And that 3-person team can do a ton of great work, right? Where you have those 3 capabilities in the same room and you're saying, what's the data saying? What are we going to make? How are we going to match offers to it? And that group works together to grow that product. And it's a shared goal. It is a shared goal. I will say, like, you can imagine like our CRO monetization marketers, they're pretty focused on that lead number, right? Like they're looking at CVR and leads, and the marketer's looking at like how many people read the thing or came in. But the way we've structured it is those small teams have shared goals.
So what are the mechanisms you're using to take people from consumption, which is like the reach goal, and then converting them into the content lead? And what does the content lead definition kind of mean for you?
Yeah, I think so. At HubSpot, you have a content lead that's been defined by the marketing and sales organization. It's actually standard across the organization.
Okay.
So when a contact or a person consumes a piece of content and then downloads something or wants a demo or signs up for a free product, there's these rules that we've defined with marketing and sales on what's a lead and what's a qualified lead. And so they are standardized. And for us, it's not just an email, right? I've seen that some places where it's just an email for subscriber. We want to gather additional information because we want to make sure that whoever's coming in is a good fit for our product and our sales team. So if you take a look at .com, there's these different conversion points and the data we're collecting there. And then we work, and this happens more during like our planning season, we work with our sales team on like, what are those qualified actions someone would take so that we get better fit audiences and contacts coming through. So we go through that planning process annually, and then we set up our funnels through the content to convert on those points.
Yeah, because some of this is like creating demand for HubSpot that likely in some percentage is being generated not through a click from the content, which obviously makes it hard. They're going to Google, typing in HubSpot, going to HubSpot.com, typing it in the LLM, whatever the case may be. But that was actually generated from some part of that content engine. So how do you think about that, or like account for that from like a measurement standpoint?
Yeah, it's
or
a
just
great
philosophy
question.
standpoint.
Yeah, no, it's a great question because I think we're all in the middle of this right now. We're, this direct attribution that we've had for 10 years is going away. And so the way that we think about it is like, there is that last click, right? So we still can track it from like someone who watches a YouTube video and then visits .com and takes an action. But what we're starting to have conversations about is like, what is the brand impact of our content? Because I think if, you're a brand marketer, you have traditional tactics around TV, out of home, digital PR, but direct media is also a tactic for reaching audiences and getting brand impressions. And honestly, the attention you're getting from a piece of media as opposed to an ad is significantly different, right? I think someone who sees a 30-second spot in their feed compared to someone who spends 40 minutes watching your show is very different from a quality standpoint. The way we're starting to look at it is, one, we are lucky, like we have a team of folks that are looking at correlations for us. So if YouTube views are going up, do we see more people going to Google and searching for branded search queries? So HubSpot or some variation of that, or our products. And we can see that correlation. We've been doing that for the past couple of years. And so that's one way, especially when we're talking to leadership, we can say, you're seeing our impressions go up across our media products, and then you're seeing this lagging action of people going and looking for our products. So that's one way to do it. I've also talked to a couple content marketers around like, how do you just like put a value on it? And so this is like an old thing we borrowed from the old like SEO PPC days, but you just put a CPM value on it. So you would say like, oh, you would have to pay for this reach on YouTube. Here's a CPM value for the market, and like, here's the value you're getting out of our channel reach. So I think you're trying to figure out like, what's the media equivalent if you had to go through paid.
Yeah. And to your point, it's like that CPM comparable is based off of an interruption CPM, which this is obviously like probably a 100x multiple on top of that, because it's like the content they actually want to consume.
Yeah, 100%. I think like one of the things we've done is we've just like gathered industry benchmarks around CPMs, and we've set what our benchmark is for our channels, right? And we've said like, hey, here's what we think it would be worth in market. And you have that conversation with your marketing leaders and your finance teams, and it allows you to kind of speak a common language. Because I think whether you're a small biz or a large biz, you want to make sure your finance partners understand the investments you're making. And so like, we've done a lot of work around, here's the activities we have, here's how we measure them, and here's the value to the business. And like, just having those conversations on a regular basis.
Yeah. So The Hustle, My First Million, would you say are those like the biggest content, like just in terms of reach and audience size, or like, what other content brands are you like real excited about right now? Are you seeing a lot of good results from?
Yeah, everybody knows The Hustle and My First Million, right? Yeah, no doubt they're fantastic products. I think this year we were up for Webby Awards. Like, they're just incredible. Watch and read them every week. They're definitely larger, more mature media products. We do have some media products that are shifting or like pivoting strategy that are still pretty large. So if you go through our audience verticals, you have kind of like the entrepreneurs, right? Which is what The Hustle and My First Million is really meant to reach. And then another core audience for us is marketers, right? And HubSpot's marketing blog is well known in the industry. But since then, we've pivoted towards a podcast, YouTube channel, and newsletter that have done pretty well for us. Marketing Against the Grain is the podcast that's since shifted to like this YouTube talk show, to marketing execs talking about the future of marketing, and definitely at the executive level around, how to use AI and what this means for the teams. And then we've started to shift towards this brand of Masters in Marketing, which is our weekly newsletter that's grown pretty significantly over the last couple of months. What we're doing on that one is, I think if you look at all the marketing newsletters in the market, a lot of them cover like big brands. They cover, Dunkin' Donuts and Pepsi and Microsoft and the latest agency brand relationship. We want to talk to the small business. And so we want to talk to the practitioners, the folks who are like the director of marketing or the social media marketing manager. So every issue of that newsletter features an interview with someone inside a company, talking to them about a channel, a strategy, a campaign. So Masters in Marketing has done really well for us. And then our two like emerging brands, we have Mindstream, which is our AI newsletter, talking about AI news, but also AI application in business. Like, where do we see this happening? And they've seen significant growth after joining HubSpot. And our newest is the Science of Scaling. So we're actually, this one's pretty cool. We're partnering with Mark Roberge. He's a Harvard Business School lecturer. He wrote the Sales Acceleration Formula, which is how B2B sales organizations go to market. And we're doing a YouTube channel with him that's really focused on tactical go-to-market for sales managers and sales reps. But being a professor, right, like being a guest lecturer, he has just these mental models and frameworks, and he goes into these stories that are just so helpful. And so those are the brands that we're really trying to build up in these audience niches.
Love it. And within those, or just, yeah, maybe in general, which of the different content channels, I guess, YouTube, newsletter, podcasts, what have you, are you like, can't stop thinking about? Like it's the number one, number one on your mind right now. And like you're I'm sure obviously with your role, like all of them you're paying attention to, but yeah, like for example, I think YouTube is fairly blue ocean still for
Yeah.
B2B. And I think most B2B companies are sleeping on it.
Yep.
Not to say that it's, and the reason is I think it's been made up in our mind that like they heard somebody say it's really hard. And it's not to say that it's not, but it's like it almost prevents that, I think, people from even starting. And most companies are using it as like a video repository of like just their webinars or conference videos and stuff like that. So I think personally, like it's one of the remaining content channels that has a lot of wide open space in it for B2B. And I think it's also a very effective channel for like audience growth and conversion and the conversion piece. Like, so that's just like, for me, I'm like really interested in just YouTube right now. But yeah, I'm curious, like what's your opinion on it?
I think you're right. I mean, like when you do the market research, everybody knew YouTube was like the second largest search engine, right? That floated around for a while. But last year, Nielsen reported it was the second largest streaming platform in the US on TV behind Disney.
Yes.
So now you're talking about a platform that's a major search engine and a major streamer inside the US home. And so I just think the size of the audience there is something you can't ignore as a marketer. And I think people are like I mentioned earlier, like people prefer video, right? I think that whether it's they want to be entertained, they want to learn something, YouTube can offer you both. So yeah, I do look over all of them. I could tell you like my dashboard has all our channels on it, but I've been spending a lot of time on YouTube over the last 2 years trying to figure out like what's the right content strategy on that channel based on our objectives. And I think that's really important. Like you mentioned growing reach and demand. I actually think that recipe is a little difficult because if you go to YouTube, right, a lot of the folks who are like finding My First Million or watching the Hustle explainers, they're finding it through like browse and suggested, right? It's just like interesting and entertaining. And so the audience is almost like passive, right? They're finding it and then they're getting hooked because the content's so good. Whereas if you have another channel that you're like, I need to design this for demand, you almost want a YouTube channel that's still search based or rooted in some search keywords, because you want the intention there. Like somebody's looking to do a thing and learn a thing. And so that's actually been something we've tried to figure out, is like, how do you design something that grows reach and reaches large audiences, but at the same time drives value for the business? I do think you can do it. I just think, I think it is harder than people think. And the other thing I'll say is like, you mentioned YouTube being hard. I would say video production has become easier, right? Like people can use their iPhones, they can get the Shure 7 mic set up at home, Riverside Descript, like all these tools make it easier to create and publish. But I will say YouTube, from what we've seen, is a unique beast. Like the channels that feel more YouTube native, where we're obsessing over the titles, the thumbnails, the editing, the pacing, the hooks, the story structure, right? To get that right is hard. And I do think like if I'm a marketer and I want to invest in YouTube, I've been telling a couple friends this. I'm like, if you're going to go into YouTube, be ready to ask for headcount for a producer.
Mm.
And I think a great producer behind the scenes who's YouTube native
Yeah.
can elevate your YouTube channel significantly. Like the marketer is going to know the audience. They're going to know the content even, right? Like what information is inside the script. They're going to know, how do I convert someone, through a link in the top comment or description. But the producer is going to know thumbnail, title, packaging. The producer is going to know, how are we going to shoot this? What's the editing and pacing look like? How do I keep someone's attention? Because the average view duration on the video is so critical from a signal standpoint to the algorithm.
Yep.
And so the one thing I'll say is like, folks go into YouTube and sometimes they just like record something and throw it up there. And then they say, oh, it's not working. Well, it wasn't made for YouTube. And I think like understanding the formats that work on that platform is critical if you're going to go that way.
Completely agree. And that's where it's like, I'm very bullish on podcasts on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like I believe, so if it's not number one, it's number two, but I believe it's the number one podcast platform as well, just from a consumption standpoint. But when you're creating a podcast, are you deciding in your mind that we are creating a YouTube podcast or we're creating a audio Spotify, Apple podcast? So that's actually an interesting decision right there. And then to your point, that doesn't have to be the only, and realistically, it shouldn't be the only YouTube content you're doing. To really crack YouTube, it's like, let's do YouTube first video content. It is purely designed for YouTube in mind. And you'll create, rather than YouTube serving as your repurposing like video platform, like we've got video content over here, let's just put it on YouTube. That's where, I think you can start to unlock, the channel much more. And where I see, and I'd be curious if you guys do any of this, I think B2B has an advantage a little bit in YouTube that they're not thinking about very often against the creators on YouTube, and which is budget. And so I think that like, a little bit of budget applied to organic videos on YouTube. So YouTube targeting, you can put in a little bit of boosted budget on videos that are already working. The targeting is not as good as like LinkedIn, but it's still pretty good. You can target people like, everybody who watches videos on this channel, I want to get this video of ours that's already performed well in front of all of them, or all of the people who are subscribed to this newsletter of ours. When they open up YouTube, I want them to be served this video of ours. And it's actually not that expensive on like a CPM basis to do stuff like that. But yeah, have you experimented with any of like, you've got this great organic content engine going. Do you apply any paid on top of that, or paid from the organic to then repurpose those into ads to drive demand? There's almost two ways. You can apply paid to grow the audience, or use the content that performed really well to inform what your ads to drive to HubSpot might be.
Yeah. We've gone through a bit of a cycle on this one. We've tested like on platform ads. Where we saw a little success was cross platform ads, which was interesting. So I don't think YouTube would ever admit this because, they're incentivized to make money. But I do think when you run ads on a channel, you can see negative performance from organic. And so we have been scared away from that, where we've said, we really want to keep this audience organic if we can. And we've said, but how do you, like, to your question, like, how do you use paid to bring people in without hurting the organic performance of the channel? So we did a couple like cross-platform strategies where we posted a YouTube video as a Facebook ad. And it lends itself to that audience because it's so visual from the thumbnail and title standpoint. And you could click someone will click, go over to YouTube and watch the video, and that cross-platform experience is actually pretty seamless to watch the video. So we've seen a little success there. And then we definitely repost YouTube videos into our newsletters as like additional content to check out, or embed it in a blog post as like an added value, right? So most of what we're doing is we're trying to boost the organic viewership on the channel, and using paid minimally for YouTube in particular.
Yeah. I mean, the organic has to work first. Like that's step one. And then, I do think what can happen is your click-through rate and your average view duration can start getting shot a little bit if you like apply too much paid to it. And then, so those are a few of the metrics that YouTube's looking at to say, should I send this video to more people organically as well? And so, definitely something to be careful of, but I do think, especially for YouTube first videos that are more like maybe mid funnel or even like bottom of funnel, like we can have 100% certainty with a little bit of paid that we're going to get those in front of the right people. So I think it's something interesting to experiment with.
Yeah, no doubt. It's like, what's your business objective? What's your model, right? Another paid play that we've had a lot of success with, to your point around like mid bottom funnel, we do a lot of creator partnerships. We invest significantly in like independent YouTubers, and there's a lot of them that are focused on educational kind of middle funnel, down funnel content. We had a video a while back around like we worked with someone on how to build a free website, and they kind of talked about all the players in the space, whether that was Squarespace or WordPress, and HubSpot CMS is mentioned. And it feels native and organic to the video, and the video itself did well organically, right? But we were a paid sponsor within that video. And so that's another play we've tried, where we'll run paid with channels that are ranking well organically.
Yeah. Which is great because like the more that the ad can feel like and look like and be a piece of content that you would normally see on the channel, the more success it likely will have.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think the packaging is really important. Obviously, you don't like, there's that line of like, you don't want to do a bait and switch, right?
Exactly.
Like it's definitely, you're still promoting, but I think if it's a valuable promotion, I think audiences are less likely to hit skip, right?
Is there like another tactic that you've like uncovered recently that you found pretty interesting for just any of, whether newsletter, YouTube, podcast, any, creator, that it could be small, could be big? I'm just curious, like,
Sure.
you all are probably constantly sort of experimenting, innovating. So is there something that you found that's like unlocked a new insight for you recently?
Yeah, one experiment we ran last quarter, that we've shared with customers, is pretty cool. We just call it like the incentivized sign up. So say you're running like a newsletter ad, right? And you could run a Facebook ad, asking someone to subscribe. That is one option, and it could go over pretty well, but your cost per sub may be a little high. It may be, $5 to $10. If you're trying to drive that down and to get it into like the $2 to $4 range, what we've done is we've going back to our conversation about like offer matches and premium content. Each of our newsletters actually spent time making a piece of premium content. So we have like a prompt library from the team at Mindstream. We have a business ideas database from the team at The Hustle, right? So you have these offers that are a little more in depth than just what you'll get in the newsletter. And we offer that inside the ad. So we'll say something like, sign up for The Hustle today, get access to the business ideas database. I'm simplifying, but the idea is, it's not just this newsletter you're going to get, we actually have some additional content that we think you'll get value from. And so we've tested, an A/B test of like straight subscriber ads to incentivized sign up ads, which offer like an additional utility or asset. And those seem to be doing pretty well for us.
Super smart. Yeah, super smart. Especially when like that additional value is related to the content that will be ongoing from that newsletter.
Yeah, that's it. I think
Yep.
that's the piece, like we talked about a little earlier, that's what people miss.
Yeah.
They're like, you have this real estate, and instead of offering value, you're putting a promotional message out there, and you're saying, why isn't it working? Well, because we all scroll past the ads that are overly promotional, right? It's like, just offer the audience something of value, and I think you'll see better performance.
Yeah, and like the value, I think now can be seen a little bit more with high effort. So like that's a high effort thing you all did there.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's much easier to just run the ad or like post the promo just going directly to the thing, but you took the time and produced something that was high effort. As more and more content comes on these platforms, I think like the high effort stuff, which you can't fake, stands out. And it's, people are smart. And so like they see like, yeah, that's the thing that will like kind of break the feed for them.
I'm so glad you said that. 'Cause we have this debate all the time, right? Around like AI content, editorial content, and like our stance is editorial grade content will outperform AI produced content. And like, I think there's a lot of B2B marketers out there who run to the, shiny tools. And they're putting stuff out there. And it does feel like some of the conversations are like, oh, AI is going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Yes, it's going to be able to enable people, no doubt, increase productivity. Myself, like writing a newsletter or social post, I'm way faster having it as like my editor and researcher to help me. But I still think what you just said so important is like editorial grade content is going to stand out in the feed. It's going to stand out in the inbox. And I think like we're seeing audiences go that way anyway, right? Like we all subscribe to Substack newsletters and Beehive newsletters from people who have done the job, and they're clear thinkers and they're helpful. And I want to go read what they have to say instead of like some random listicle that I find online. Right? Like I'm trying to learn from an individual who has experience, and the content's editorial grade. They've taken the time to do research and go get a quote and pull like reputable sources into it. And it is hard. I mean, you nailed it. It is hard to do. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it for sure.
Yeah. Cause it's like, if everybody has access to the tool, what can you possibly do that somebody else can't do? So yeah, the more we can generate transcripts or original insight or research that do not exist inside the LLM, then the more our content is going to actually be differentiated from what anybody else can produce.
Yeah.
And it's just more work. So it's like, it's simple. We just got to do more work. It's not easy, but
no.
And I think like one note too, I'll just mention on that is like, for YouTube, to your point, people are watching YouTube channels on their living room TVs now. So it's like, what type of content are people used to watching on their living room TV? We should get in that mindset, which is like when we're creating the content, if we hold ourselves to that bar, it's going to be very difficult to not succeed with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, gosh, this must have been a couple weeks ago. I saw this interview, Colin and Samir, that creator-based YouTube channel. They'd interviewed Patty Galloway, the YouTube strategist, and they went off on this like kind of tangent around why doesn't Target, the retailer, have its own YouTube studio? Like it'd be like a no-brainer. They could, do shopping content. They could do fashion and apparel content, and they'd be able to build an audience on the platform that would be incredibly valuable compared to just like the 15-second spot that passes through your feed.
Yep.
And I do think like Bill Simmons at The Ringer finally like upgraded the studio for his pod. I do think the talk shows are starting to go more like in person in
Correct.
studio. Because of what you're talking about, right? It's like people, it's not necessarily like TV studio quality. We joke around, we call it premium DIY. It's like you're still doing it yourself. You know, you're going on Amazon and buying the mics and the lights and everything. But there's a gloss to it. There's a little bit more polish where you're like, hey, this is reputable, it's credible, I want to watch this thing. And I think you nailed it, where it's like, where is our audience spending their time, and can we make content for that channel in particular?
It was nice 7 years ago when audio quality, video, podcast didn't even need video. Audio quality didn't matter. Just use your AirPods or whatever. Like,
sure.
So, but no, I think net, it's better for everyone. All right, Kyle, we're at time. We could probably talk for 2 more hours.
Days, yeah.
So yeah, last question, just be like, we covered a lot, but like anything else you are excited about coming up for you guys, like content trends you're seeing that you're like, ooh, this is a small trend I'm noticing in this corner over here. I'm keeping my eye on that, because usually small little trends turn into big behaviors. Or just, anything else you're like excited about with all this content stuff?
Gosh, I nerd out over all of it. I would say, and I don't think this is new, like not like hot off the press, but last couple months, LinkedIn video is interesting to me. LinkedIn video is interesting. It's, I myself have like moved off X and like I'm on LinkedIn for business content, connecting with peers and other marketers and like just trying to learn new things. I know the algorithm, previously was pushing a lot of vertical video. They've since pulled back a little bit. We've seen on our internals is like, okay, it's not doing as well as it used to. But I do think LinkedIn has an interesting ecosystem. They have LinkedIn Learning. They have the vertical video format. I do think in B2B, it's definitely an interesting channel to be on, to be able to get in front of your prospects.
Yeah, to me, it's like, it's one of those channels you have to be on and be intentional about it, which is tough, because it's like, if every channel needs to be that channel first, LinkedIn first, YouTube first, newsletter first, and there's through lines you can like, connect the content together, but kind of reformat it in a way that makes it more native. But yeah, I guess the point here, like, is just like, we shouldn't think of these things as it's going to be easy. Like, we shouldn't set an extreme goal, which is like, we want to generate demand through content, and then not resource it or plan for it to match and map to that goal in a 2025 environment. Like, putting one content person owning LinkedIn, YouTube, newsletter, social, like, it's tough. It's a tough position to be in. A lot of companies are in that. So it's like, I think it's just, mapping what the goal is correctly to what the resourcing is for that goal. And I think it's important for everyone to remember, I think you all are an incredible case study. But as you mentioned earlier, you've got like 50 team members, working on all that. And so other companies may be in different positions. And so like, scope down the goal a little bit and like be a little more prioritized about what you're targeting.
Yeah, for sure. I have a buddy who works at a small agency in upstate New York, and he has a fantastic LinkedIn presence. And the company itself, I think, is only 20 people, maybe 30. But he's able to plan, batch record, and he works with a contract producer editor. He rents, a podcast studio in his city to do, a day of recording, and then he's got content for the next month. Right. And like, I think that's the thing, is you win in pre-production. What's the plan? What do you want to cover? And then you're able to execute against that for the next month. I think, to your point, we're lucky. Like we have a daily news product. So we have folks who are like actively, sourcing stories and headlines and putting that out. But I think for most marketers, ideal team of 3. I always talk about team of 3 as like your demand gen marketer, your producer, your writer. If you had a team of 3, you could do an incredible program. If you're a team of 1 and you're a team of 1 with a little budget, I think you can do a fantastic job outsourcing some of the additional work. It's just, you're right. You got to do the hard stuff. You got to do the research. You got to put a ton into pre-production. Batch record, batch write, and then figure out what the distribution is after that. But it can be done for sure.
100%. Especially now more than ever, to be honest. Like, yes, there's more channels, there's more formats and all of that, but there's also more tools, more niche agencies, freelancers, specialists, that kind of stuff too. So I guess we can end on this note, a little bit of optimism, which is like, I think it's scary for a lot of marketers and content people right now. Like, oh, AI is coming for all of our jobs and whatever. I kind of think it's like one of the best times. We'll look back on this and be like, this is one of the best times ever to be in marketing or be in content right now, with the creativity we can execute on, the tools we have, the channels we have. So I'm trying to be a little positive.
I'm with you. You got to have fun with it, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you not love it? These tools are incredible, right? And now it's like, okay, like, how can I learn this new tool and learn this? I remember like coming up, you're like, I watched Whiteboard Friday with Rand Fishkin every Friday. I'm like, I'm going to learn SEO. That's what I'm going to do, right? And then it's like, okay, there's a shift in the market. Now I get to learn these new tools. And like, I'm with you. I'm excited about it. Our team's excited about it. I think listeners should definitely lean into it.
Awesome, man. Kyle, this was great, man. I would recommend everybody to go to your LinkedIn, follow you there, DM you, whatever the case may be. And I think your newsletter is linked on your LinkedIn as well. So you're writing about all the stuff that we talked about today on an ongoing basis. So I'd recommend everybody to subscribe to your newsletter. And then, go study these content brands that you all are doing at HubSpot. Like, there's no better learning to be had than like studying what people are doing. And so, maybe we can help get some more subscribers. And anywhere else you just want to like direct people to other than those places?
Yeah, I mean, like, definitely check out, our media brands. Obviously, The Hustle, My First Million are some favorites, but Masters in Marketing, the team over there is doing an incredible job. Science of Scaling and Mindstream are kind of like up and comers. The creative on the Science of Scaling YouTube channel is like beautiful. I always tell the producer, I slacked him, I'm like, you're doing great work. So check out those media brands and appreciate the plug for LinkedIn. Hit me up. I'm always looking for examples of cool things people are building. So would love to know what's out there and where people are having success.
Love it. Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Erik.